disabled, like some of them are blind, some of them are physically challenged. So those are the type of people that we talk about when we are talking about vulnerable communities and vulnerable groups.
Right.
Yeah.
Just to put this into context, 43% of Kenya's population lives under $1 a day. That is running into the millions, considering we're about 45 million people. What options are there in terms of housing? And let's even start here.
Yeah.
What is the definition of decent housing?
The definition of decent housing, according to UN Habitat, and even according to Habitat for Humanity, is a house that is, like the plinth area. I mean, the square footage is enough, to take care of, the household. Sometimes you have one room for 10 people. That is not a decent house. We are talking about, when you are talking about decent housing, we are not only looking at the structure, but we are looking also at basic services. For example, we are looking at access to water, access to sanitation. Without access to sanitation, that is not a decent house. And then when we go possibly in the urban areas, we are looking at access to infrastructure. For example, we are looking at how far is your workplace from, how far are you living from your workplace? Take for example the people who are living in some of the slums in Nairobi, and they have to walk like 10 kilometers to their houses, to their workplaces. That already is not decent according to the definition. So we are looking at access to basic services, we are looking at the structure itself, and we are looking at is it enough to take care, to carry everybody that needs to stay in that house. So for example, the definition is like for 10 by 10, that should take care of one person. So if you have, for example, 6 children, you should have 6 of those 10 by 10s.
Okay.
Yeah.
We shall be getting back to that conversation on housing the vulnerable in just a little bit. We want to take you now to listen in to the BBC on the developments on the Ukraine and Russian conflict. Let's just listen in on what's the latest.
You can ask an aggressor to abstain from vote at the stage of peaceful resolution under Chapter 6, but you cannot ask aggressor, believe it or not, to abstain from vote under Chapter 7 when the Council deals with the aggression. I have also asked the Secretary General of the United Nations to produce the copies of the decisions of the Security Council and the General Assembly dated 1991 that, in accordance with Article 4 of the Charter, welcome the desire of the Russian Federation to be a member of this organization.
So as we were saying a few hours ago, the UN Security Council held an emergency meeting at Ukraine's request. The UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, made a last-ditch appeal to Russia.
This is the saddest moment in my tenure as Secretary General of the United Nations. I started this meeting of the Security Council.
Don't ask me questions when you are speaking. Proceed with your statement.
Anyway, you declared the war. It is the responsibility of this body to stop the war. So I call on every one of you to do everything possible to stop the war. Or should I play the video with your president declaring the war? Thank you very much.
I must say that I thank the representative of Ukraine for his statement, and the questions, I wasn't planning to answer them because I've already said all I know at this point. Waking up Minister Lavrov at this time is not something I plan to do. You said the information that we have will be something we provide. And this isn't called a war, this is called a special military operation in the Donbass.
Well, with me in the studio, our news reporter, Mark Lebel. Mark, let's just go right back to where this began. In the last few hours, 3 a.m. GMT, about 5 a.m. Kiev time. Tell us what happened.
Well, President Putin made a surprise address on television announcing a military assault in the east of the country, in the east of Ukraine. I should just say that we're just hearing that the Luhansk separatists in those two areas that we've been focusing on over the last few weeks, which are under Russian-backed control, the fear was that they would stretch out of those areas backed by Russian troops. And just to fast forward to where we are now, two towns, they're reporting they have taken two towns just across the border from where it was separatist-held areas. So that's the first gains, if you like, of this military assault that Russia was threatening for a while. But so to go back to President Putin, he delivered this chilling speech, not only announcing the military assault would begin, but also threatening huge consequences if any foreign power intervened, and also saying he wanted the demilitarization and also the denationalization of Ukraine. So from what he's been saying in the past, it's unclear where his end game is. And then from then, we now learn that at that time at 3 a.m., when it was 4 hours ago, 4.25 hours ago, troops began crossing the north of Ukraine from Belarus and the south from Crimea. We also heard immediately explosions all around the country, which we believe were attacks on military infrastructure, airfields, military bases. And then as far west as Lviv, we also heard explosions there. So now we're looking at a situation where troops are actually crossing the border. Tanks have rolled in. The Ukrainian border forces have accepted that that's what's happening, have reported that's what's happening. And you had the air raid siren go off when we were talking to James Waterhouse in Kiev. So that's what's happening in Kiev, and people are in air raid shelters there.
Well, on that note, Mark, let's talk now to James himself, who we saw in the headlines there with sirens blaring in Kiev. James, just tell us what the situation is there right now.
Well, Karen, to be honest with you, I think we're in the eye of the storm, the very calm eye. If you just look, just over my shoulder, there is St Michael's Square in the cathedral. And usually you would see busy cobbled streets, people filling the pavements, walking to their respective ministerial buildings. But now it's the quietest we've seen it. Reason being that people were woken up at 5 o'clock this morning to the sound of explosions out of sight. They resembled thunder, to be honest with you, out of sight, across the horizon in all directions. That was then followed by a series of air raid sirens that we hadn't really heard before. Then there were police vehicles taking to the streets using sirens and loudspeakers urging people to get to safety. What has then happened is people have been queuing to buy food, they're panic buying clothing, and the busy highway that goes in and out of Kiev, it's a 10-lane motorway, is effectively jammed at the moment as people try and get to safety. But the picture we're getting beyond the capital is something quite larger scale.
And hygiene. We define decent housing in terms of also the house itself, the structure, whether it has, excuse me, whether it has enough space for the people living in the house. For example, per person is required that per person in a house, it's required somebody has 3 meters by 3 meters. Yeah, but sometimes you have what we call 10 by 10. You have possibly 10 people staying in that house. That is not decent housing. We also define decent housing in terms of, the distance from the workplace. And I was talking about some people who are living in slums in Nairobi, for example, have to walk like 10 kilometers, possibly to industrial area or other places to, to their workplaces, to their employers. In terms of decency, that is not a decent house. So those entails the definition of decent house. Right. For us, we work more in the rural areas and possibly in the peri-urban areas, and sometimes you find that the vulnerable groups have houses that they leak You can sit in the house and you can see the roof actually. So when it rains, it all rains on them. You also find that some houses are so small, maybe built of mabati, the materials, they are so small and they have adult children. You know what happens to the psychology of the children and even the parents. They are not comfortable, you know, sleeping in the same areas as their children. So for us, that those type of houses also have some form of, you know, indecency in them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you mention about the mabati housing, I'm curious, does the material used to make the house matter? I mean, can you have a mud house that is decent?
Absolutely. You can have a mud house that is decent. You can have a mud house with even thatch roof that is decent. But sometimes, you know, even the size of the house, the other services like water and sanitation is missing. You find people going to the, you know, using outside or to the bushes to support themselves, to relieve themselves. So you find that there's an element that is missing in that house. Yeah. So you can have a mabati house that is decent. We have mabati houses in Nairobi, houses built by mabati rentals that are fairly decent. So for us, the materials do not really matter. But in the rural areas, we focus more on the local materials that are available to construct houses. So if it is thatch and mud and whatever is there, for us, that could still be decent.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the urban areas. Most of the urban population in Kenya, about 60%, live in informal settlements. And of course, that is a big problem because eventually they don't have decent housing. So what can be done? Because in the urban areas, space is a problem. What can be done to ensure that these 60% are living decently within, you know, the available space?
Yeah, so you know, there are things that the government should do, and there are things that can be done by the, you know, by the people themselves. If we look at the strata or the segments of housing, you find that you know, there is the informal urban settlements housing that is a problem. Then there is also the rental segment, you know, small renters, that is also could also be a problem. Then we have the larger urban, and then we have what we call the incremental segment. So when you look at the urban housing, it's not just the informal; it's also the tenant segment, and it also could be the mortgage segment, and it also could be the incremental, you know, segment. So in informal settlements, you know, first of all, they do not have even titles to some of those lands. Those lands have been, you know, acquired through sometimes invasion. Yeah, you find land and invade it. So even in terms of households, to access, you know, sometimes funding to be able to build incrementally. Yeah.
About access to funding, of course, the government launched the Kenya Mortgage Refinancing Corporation that is trying to lower the cost of mortgages in this country, considering the uptake is really low. But even when you look at the offering that the government is giving, someone who earns, say, 20,000 a month, it might be difficult for them to access this kind of funding. How can this space be, how can that funding now be more accessible to these low-income earners? Because it might lock out the low-income earners, just accommodate the middle and upper.
What I know and what I understand from the KMRC is that KMRC lends to institutions. And the institutions lend to low-income households. The question is, what would be the interest rate for that? But I understand that the role of KMRC is not to go directly and implement financial services to the rural population or to the low-income household. The role of KMRC is to facilitate financial institutions, including banks and microfinance institutions, to get enough funding, or even to have what we call something to do with collateral. yeah, so that they can be able to lend to this category of people. We have the likes of financial institutions like Kenya Women Microfinance Bank that already have financial services for low-income households, and these are households like that earn between maybe 20 to 30,000 shillings. Mostly they are, small and micro entrepreneurs, and they provide housing loans. We call them housing microfinance loans that individuals that are economically active can borrow and build houses. And there's a program that we did with them as Habitat for Humanity. We supported them to develop housing microfinance products, and through the support, through the technical assistance, they were able to pilot and scale up what we call Nyumba Smart loan product. And KWFT is spread all over the country. And if KMRC, for example, can support KWFT to funding, maybe long-term capital, which can enable them to support low-income households through loans, then that would be, quite supporting the government agenda of affordable housing. Yeah, and I was going to say that, within the product, we talk about, when we look at what the government has done in Nairobi, I think through the affordable housing program in Nairobi, it's about 2,300 houses that have been built. KWFT, by the time we stopped the program, already gave about 70,000 loans and built 70,000 houses within 5 years. So you can see that, again, people are always building.
Yes.
Betty.
Yes.
Yes. People are always building, whether the government gives them money or not, or whether they get money from institutions or not. So the question is, where are people getting their funding from? Yeah. And can the government also look into the incremental building and count this as part of the, what the government is doing as part of the housing agenda? Yeah.
Part of ownership of houses and decent housing is really land ownership, especially in the rural areas.
Yeah.
Now, when you talk about low-income earners or poor families, land ownership is a bit of an issue in this country. So, just give us the context of land ownership versus the low-income earners and how this can be remedied to enable them have decent housing.
Yeah. So I think there are two aspects to land ownership. The approvals and then the construction. So there's a miss somewhere. Is it in the plans that are taken for approval? Because the government has got specific laws what constitute affordable housing. Even in residential areas, controlled residential areas, there are specific conditions for a house to be built there. Even in the low-income informal areas, I would want to say, for example, I'm not so sure Dandora, I'm not so sure Umoja. There are specific plans that are approved for those areas. So how come that, when the house is built, it is, even a bed cannot fit into a bedroom? What happens? So there's a lot of cutting, shortcuts in terms of construction. And that's why you see, so many houses collapsing. Because the laws are there, the instruments are there, the institutions that are meant to, to check are there, but something happens somewhere and we end up with those kind of houses. Yeah.
And so how is the Habitat for Humanity doing? What is it doing to remedy this situation?
For urban areas and for urban low income areas, like these are private houses. Yeah, private ownership. what we call the rental. That is the rental segment I was talking about. That is you deciding that I have 10 million and this 10 million, I want 100 units from it. You see? Yeah? So for me, I see that the government has a big role to play here. For us, what we can do at Habitat for Humanity is policy, lobby that the policies and things that are in place are followed. But apart from that, it will be difficult, you know, because the government is there. The government has a very long arm to ensure that, you know, what is affordable and what is appropriate. We talk about appropriate and affordable. What is appropriate is what is built. Because also when you've lived outside the country, you know they are very particular in their cities, the kind of houses, even the kind of colors, even the kind of materials and the building. What is happening in Kenya? Yeah? Something is happening that you know, the government needs to focus on, to spotlight.
Right.
Yeah.
So that it stops the haphazard, you know.
There's the haphazard building. There are places that, you know, are not decent from the definition of decency. The housing structure sometimes are not strong enough to hold, you know, all these units. So you find the houses collapsing and people, you know, losing their lives. So whenever a house collapses, what I see is the government becomes very busy, you know, very busy trying to sort out the problem, but it's more of ad hoc interventions. It is not, you know, a well thought out intervention here. But the laws are there, the rules are there, and the institutions are there. Yeah.
Right.
The underlying thing, if I may say it here, is also, you know, corruption. Yeah.
Corruption that needs to be clamped down upon, of course. Decent housing goes beyond just the house that you live in. It's also the environment that you live in. And of course, in the urban areas, we are rife to the fact that pollution is quite a big problem. I mean, there are high-end houses that are advertised with a river flowing by, but the river is full of sewage. So just speak to the importance of environmental conservation in ensuring that people have decent houses.
I remember one time, I don't know whether it was Kilonzo, Mutula Kilonzo,
the late,
who said that by the time he finishes his term, we are starting advocacy on land issues, and it's something that we are very interested in. Security of tenure for us, and what we are talking about is more of advocacy at village level, at community level, at policy level. Policy, we are allowed to inherit, but culturally sometimes it becomes difficult for the female child or the female member of the household to inherit. So in the next 5 years, you'll be seeing us advocating for some of these issues, especially in areas that we work. Our advocacy starts at the community level because we work with the communities, but we also work with the county governments.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Advocacy is very important.
It's very
in that sector.
It's key for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
We are talking about matters housing the vulnerable and just how women, children, the disadvantaged, the elderly can be housed in decent houses, so to say. Now we want to take you to the Windsor Golf Club, where the Partnership for Africa Social and Governance Research is releasing, or rather is talking about the Utafiti Sera National Conference on youth employment and how the youth can be plugged into the trade of potato and mango farming. Let's listen in to what's going on there.
Youth can be so captivating and engaging that evidence and policy enthusiasts like myself sometimes struggle to draw the line when to disengage. We want to talk. Please allow me to stop here and take this opportunity to welcome, let me read the names properly. Let me welcome Eric, I'm told Ben, to come forward to read the speech, because Cas for Agriculture is here, but we have Cas in the house. So all protocols observed. I hope, Ben, that's okay? That's okay? All right. So may I take this opportunity to welcome Ben to speak? Then I'll come back to invite Cass to give official remarks. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for Mr. Ben Yariero as he gives his particular speech. Now listen, at one point or the other, I will give you an opportunity for you to ask questions directly. So please feel free, even as they're having the conversations, jot down on your jotter, on the paper we have in front of you, so that you will be able to articulate your questions very, very well, and we will be able to proceed. Mr. Ben Yariero, over to you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you so. Thank you so much. All protocol observed. My name is Benson. Let me remove this. My name is Benson Nyeriero, working with the Ministry of Agriculture as the head of Youth in Agriculture Unit. At the same time, representing the Chief Administrative Secretary, Madam Annie Nyaga. She's out on official assignments. So I'm here on the two capacities, both as the head of the Youth in Agriculture Unit and at the same time representing the Chief Administrative Secretary, Madam Annie Nyaga. And now that we have a substantive Chief Administrative Secretary from Treasury, I'll just make a few remarks and then probably I'll give out the speech which was to be read by Madam Annie Nyaga, because that is a protocol for those of us who work with the government. You know, processes and procedures must be followed. So kindly allow me just to make my few remarks and then I'll hand over the speech which was to be read by Madam Annie Nyaga for capturing the contents thereof. As the head of the Youth in Agriculture Unit, first and foremost, her apologies. Now that she's not able to be with us here, she has sincerely sent her greetings to you and wishes you a fruitful stay and deliberations for these 2 days. And I believe at the end of the 2-day consultative workshop, we'll be able to come up with a good way forward. As the head of Youth in Agriculture, our focus this year and the years to come is targeting the youth, not actually youth, but kids in primary schools. If you all remember, sometimes last year it was on June the 4th, and I decided that probably I would try it out and make money out of farming. But we are talking of catching them young at that tender age so that we're able to address that negative perception and attitude towards agriculture. So thank you so much, and I trust and believe that we're going to have a fruitful deliberation of this over these 2 days. And at the end of it, I'm sure we are going to have a good way forward. Thank you, Dr. Dame. Thank you, my colleagues from PSDR, Alternatives Africa, and government representatives. Thank you so much, and wish you a fruitful deliberation over these 2 days. Thank you, and God bless.
Well, that is coming to us from the Windsor Golf Club, and it is the Utafiti Sera Conference by the PASGR, and it's just focusing on how the youth are supposed to get employment or open up opportunities for the youth in the agriculture sector, with the mindset of the youth against agriculture really being quite a point of concern there. The government bringing back the 4K clubs in schools to just ensure that the young people are introduced early to agriculture and that they can maybe venture into agriculture in their adulthood. Of course, our reporter Hibak Said is on the ground there, and she will be bringing us that report in full in our subsequent bulletins. Here in studio, we are with Ruth Odera. She is the National Director of the Habitat for Humanity Kenya, and we have been talking about matters housing the vulnerable. Thank you, Ruth, for staying with us.
Thank you.
Ruth, this year the Habitat for Humanity turns 40. Yeah. Could you just tell us what you've achieved over the last 40 years and maybe what you're doing to celebrate that achievement?
So Habitat for Humanity Kenya was established in 1982. And we are registered as an NGO under the NGO Registration Act 1992, yes. Habitat for Humanity we are a housing organization, and our vision is a nation where everybody has a decent place to live. And we have a mission. We are a Christian organization, so our mission is seeking to put God's love into action. Habitat for Humanity brings people together to build homes, communities, and hope. So for us, building communities and hope, houses, community, and hope is very important for us. It's key. It's the reason why, we exist. And like I told you, housing for us is not just the four walls. It's not just the structure. It's the sun. It's the water. It's sanitation. It's everything to do with housing. It's the environment. Yeah. So for the past 40 years, we've had quite a number of programs that has gone outside there to support communities, economically active people, communities. We have also constructed houses. So we've had a number of programs. When we started, we were working with communities to build houses. And, you were saying that in Africa, people support one another to build their houses. So why don't you work with, communities, community members to build house for a community member? So we did that for a number of years, where we were giving materials and like cement, and community members would build for one another. It was called the affiliate model. And that one we did, new things came and we decided to change. So we went into retail lending. So in retail lending, we were able to give loans. We were retailing loans to members of the communities who could afford to pay. And now we were not talking about, the charity cases, the vulnerable groups. We were talking about the economically active people. So we did that for 5 years, and that one we found out we were not the best. It is great. We are beating our own drums, as we say, just to celebrate, the impact that we have created. And, impact sometimes is not just in numbers. Impact is also very personal. If, for example, we have a child-headed household in Homa Bay that we built for a house. And, his 3 or 4 other siblings. Now, we built 2-bedroom houses, with water and toilets and tanks, water tanks with a complete rain harvesting system.
Nice.
Imagine the impact that we have in the family, in the lives of those people. So the impact might be small in terms of the outreach, because the housing need is great outside there. But in terms of impact, in terms of what goes into the heart, it's very important.
Yeah.
And in Homa Bay also, I remember, a vulnerable person, a disabled person married to a disabled person. So nobody can carry each other can carry the other one because they can't walk. But they have children. And they don't have houses. If you go to the house, you can see the roof. Imagine the kind of impact a house has in the minds of those people.
Touching them.
The community starts seeing them. Even their self-esteem, rises. Even the things that they were not able to do, they start doing. That is the much impact that we make within the communities.
That is very important, and it's great that you've been touching lives for the past 40 years. We can't wait to see what the future 40 and more have for you. Well, Ruth, we have come to the end of the conversation, but I'll give you 30 seconds to give us your closing remarks.
Yes. So we are celebrating our 40th anniversary, and for each year we are building 40 houses for vulnerable groups to represent each house to represent 1 year of our existence. And we want you to go to our website. Our website is www.hfhkenya.org/ 40 at 40. Go to our website and see the wonderful things that we are doing there. You can also reach us on our Facebook page, Habitat for Humanity KE. We also have an Instagram at HFH Kenya. Our Twitter handle is at HFH Kenya. And we have an email which is called build@HFH Kenya. We are calling everybody to join us and build with us. We have a gala dinner in May, and we want everybody to come and attend and just share with us the happiness that we experience at 40. They say life begins at 40. So we are looking forward to another 40 years as we support, these communities with the housing and basic services. And we hope that everybody can join us.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ruth, for sharing your sentiments with us. And congratulations, and we hope for the best for you and the organization.
Thank you so much.
Karibu sana. I have been speaking with Ruth Odera. She's the National Director of the Habitat for Humanity Kenya, and we have been talking about housing the vulnerable, what their options are, and what Habitat for Humanity is doing to touch the lives of many. Remember, you can just join them in bettering the lives of many vulnerable people. Make sure to go to their website there or their social media handles and maybe touch a life. Well, we take a quick break here on BizCheck. When we come back, a conversation on matters agriculture, potato and mango farming. Stay with us.
Thank you.
Do you have a new story to share with KBC?
Many thanks for staying with BizCheck here on KBC Channel 1. My name is Betty Kiptum. Now, in the second hour of this particular program, we shall be having a conversation on matters agriculture and how to ensure that the young people are being integrated into the agriculture ecosystem. To have this conversation is Dr. Beatrice Muganda. She is the director at the Partnership for African Social and Governance Research. I got that right?
Yes.
Karibu sana, and thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
Karibu. Could you just give us some statistics of how the agriculture sector is looking in terms of the youth, maybe?
So, starting at the African level, we have 37% youth population. And of this, 60% are unemployed. And then when you come down to Kenya, we have about 47.6 million Kenyans, of which about 30 million are youth. The unemployment rate in Kenya right now is about 9.3%. And of this, 18.3% are unemployed. So to think that from our research, we can leverage about 3.2 million jobs from the mango and another 3.2 million jobs from the potato sectors. It's really amazing to think that such opportunities are not being adequately exploited. Yes.
Those are quite some interesting numbers, considering the unemployment and the potential that these sectors have to employ these people. Where is the gap?
So the gap really, there are many gaps. So first of all, we think about the perception, the poor attitude towards agriculture. Youth are not ready, majority of them, to explore opportunities in agriculture. Our education system is very elitist. Our youth aspire for the white-collar jobs. So that's a big problem. But even for those who are willing to venture into that area, the land tenure system is problematic. We have small pieces of land, and so it's not possible for these youth, most of who are even landless, to engage in agriculture that's competitive. And within the sector itself also, there's a problem of low research, and so the quality of seeds is not very good. Only 5% of the amount of seeds that are required, certified seeds in the sector, are available. So in terms of, if you think about what we need for production, there's a problem with seeding, there's a problem with land, there's a problem with technology. What kind of a technology would be appropriate for smallholder farms? Because most of the technologies we have are for big agricultural farms. And the poverty, of course, because even when all these factors can be accessed, we are talking about money. Can youth access credit? They can't, because they do not have the collateral. So it's a mixture of things that just make it so difficult for youth to exploit these opportunities.
Right. You have just set us on a very good path, because we shall be delving into those particular points in detail. Let's just start there with the mindset change.
Yes.
The young people, most of them, right now, they grew up, growing up, they were just seeing agriculture and farming is for people who did not make it in life, yeah?
Yes, yes.
So making them now go back to the farm,
yes.
What will it take?
Its investment is about money. So if we can demonstrate to these youth that investment in agriculture will pay them the money that they need to lead a good life. Like, you can stay in the village, on the farm, and still afford to dress well, still afford to, to get out and have a good time with your friends, to relax, then the youth will actually take up. If youth come together and form cooperatives, they can source land and undertake agriculture on that piece of land. It's also got something to do with access to credit. They can lease the land, and it will help them with the farming.
It will help them with the farming, of course.
Yeah.
So for young people, coming together, as you've mentioned, is a very important thing.
Yes.
Is there anything specific that is being done to ensure that these resources, because the youth have resources, they have the skills, some of them have the income and others don't. So when they come together, they pull all these resources together.
Yes.
Is there something that is being done to make sure that young people are coming together, maybe forming even cooperatives and venturing into agriculture?
Yes, the government has actually been at the forefront encouraging these youth to form these community-based organizations. And many youth have formed these organizations, and they are running businesses with chicken and fish farming and horticulture. So that's working. And then there's the Youth Enterprise Fund. So again, the youth just have to be supported and encouraged, and information shared on how they can tap into these opportunities to make farming a reality. Yes.
When you talk about the value addition bit of it,
yes,
Kenya exports a lot of raw materials, across the agriculture sector.
Yes.
The reason for value addition is to make sure that first, we are adding value, and through that, we are creating jobs for our people, uplifting the economy while at it, and making sure that income is in people's pockets.
Yes.
So this trickles down to even the manufacturing sector.
Yes.
So what can be done to make sure that more of our raw materials produced here is being value added before export?
Again, back to the issue of agriculture and research, because we need that information on the technologies that will help us improve our seeds throughout, across the various food crops. Even if you think about, let's say, fish farming, chicken, we need that research, and then take the research to the farmers. But that is at the production stage. As we move from the production stage, we also need, again, research on storage. We have a lot of losses, post-harvest losses. Again, we need interventions in that area. And then transport. Some areas are really difficult to reach. How can we improve transport services? And also just access to markets using digital technology, just like the Ubers, how can we create a system that, again, farmers are able to access products from the farms at good prices, and we get rid of the middlemen. So all this put together, you can see that slowly we are adding value and increasing returns to the farmer, rather than, losing money along the road, along the chain.
Right.
Yes.
You've mentioned the leveraging of the digital platforms, for easy, connecting the markets to the farms.
Yes, yes.
And this is one sector that can also provide jobs for the youth, because,
Exactly.
we have probably the most tech-savvy youth population in the continent, yeah?
Yes, yes.
So how can they be attracted into this sector? There are some platforms, maybe apps or websites that have come up, to support this sector. What more can be done?
So again, ministries of agriculture, and mostly they are providing farm inputs. So for the value chain to grow and to be strengthened, they must provide goods of certain quality. I'm not saying that the inputs are not of high quality, but they must check that they're getting the products of the highest quality, the inputs of the highest quality to provide to the farmers. So that would be the beginning point. And of course also helping them to access the markets. Yeah, so that time is not lost. And crops destroyed, for example, the post-harvest losses have to be arrested at the right time. And here also the county government can play a role. Yes.
How about on training?
Training, yes, definitely. And county governments have been supporting youth to access training. Some county governments actually have a youth fund, a scholarship for youth, and this should be enhanced. But additionally, it's not just about any training. What youth lack is really information on the right kind of training that will address the skills mismatch, so that whatever skills they are getting out of these trainings are applicable in the job market. And here also the county government may not directly establish, like let's say they have established the polytechnics, they have in collaboration with the national government, they have also established the vocational training colleges, but these need to be better equipped to cater for a larger number of the youth. Yes.
When you look at developed countries, the agriculture sector is quite a big business.
Yes.
And for a country like Kenya, we have quite the resources.
Yes, yes.
But we still cannot feed ourselves.
Yes,
yeah?
yes, yes.
So that means there's a very big potential for this sector.
Yes, yes.
So what does the government need to do to move, or to move from the smallholder farming being looked at very casually, so to say,
yes,
to make it agribusiness?
Smallholder farms cannot really sustain the kind of agriculture that we're talking about unless there's intensive investment in technologies, so that productivity per acre is improved. But there are opportunities. For example, we have a lot of land that is not being utilized. There are opportunities for irrigation, for example. And we can get the government through, for example, this Youth Enterprise Fund, facilitate these youth to come together through these cooperative societies and get some of this land that is not being used and facilitate productivity through irrigation. Yes.
When it comes to access to markets, there's the access to markets locally.
Yes.
The challenge has always been infrastructure and maybe storage facilities, the cold storage.
Yes.
Let's talk about that before we go into the export market.
Yes. So again, here is where the cooperatives can intervene, like put up some processing plants, and we know there are such interventions, for example, in Makueni. The county governments can also, it's a real opportunity for county governments to put up small processing plants or even coolants, if it's like something like milk, where these products can be at least kept to avoid to support the youth to meet these standards. Because once those standards are met, then there will not be a problem of accessing the market. Yeah.
Right. And there's the issue of when you're adding value to these products.
Yes.
Ensuring that the end product is competitive in the market is another thing.
Yes.
So that means the input costs, the production costs, and that is a song that manufacturers have been singing, for quite some time, that the production cost in this country is too high, such that goods that have been imported are cheaper than goods produced locally.
Yes.
What does the government need to do to make our goods more competitive, both locally and internationally?
They should consider subsidies. And of course, the issue of taxation is usually very sensitive. But that's one area. I mean, if you think about the cost of fuel and how much tax is levied, and transport is involved in these value chains, and that also adds to the cost. So these are things that the government should look into. Yeah.
Government should, of course, look into them. So for maybe a young person who is watching us right now, and wondering just where do I start? If I want to venture into agriculture, there is money there if you do the right thing.
Yes.
Where can they start?
Let them start with what they have. And what do they have? The beauty with Africa is that we have a very strong support system. And so there's that sister, there's that aunt, there's that mother who can give you a small piece of land to start your small plot for vegetables, for fruits. Let them start with what they have, and let them leverage on existing technologies to intensify production from that small piece of land. And then look out for friends, look out for other peers, form a community-based organization, and this is how they start leveraging the credit, how they start leveraging the big markets. Yeah.
And before they venture into these particular ventures, there is the issue of understanding, having an understanding of what you're going into.
Exactly.
Because you just can't wake up one morning and you say, I'm going to be a pomegranate farmer.
Yes.
You don't even know what fruit that is. Yeah,
it's true.
And you get in there.
It's true.
So what can they do to maybe improve their chances of making it when they get into the agriculture venture?
Seek information. Information, that's critical. And there are many sources of information. Youth are very tech savvy, social media, they can go on Twitter, they can check on the internet. And again, I know you'll say in the rural areas these things may not be accessible, but we have all these small internet cafes where they can go and find this information. And then we have the agricultural offices and the extension officers. Again, those are a good source of information.
Right. We are with Dr. Beatrice Muganda. She is the director of the Partnership for African Social and Governance Research, and we are talking about matters agriculture and the youth. Just how do we make sure that more young people are looking at agriculture as a source of income, a place where they can do their business and thrive and have their families and live a good life from, agriculture income. This is BizCheck. You are watching on KBC Channel 1. Get in touch with us on Twitter at KBC Channel 1, and my personal Twitter handle is at Betty Kiptum. Tell us what your experience is, and we shall be sharing that in a little bit. Now we want to take a quick break. BizCheck comes back in a little bit. Stay with us. Thank you for watching BizCheck this morning. We have been having a conversation on matters agriculture and the young people. And Dr. Beatrice Muganda, the Director of Partnership for African Social and Governance Research, is here with us in studio. Dr. Muganda, could you just take us through what industries that the young people can look at in terms of providing value, the skills they can offer in agriculture?
Yes, again, just as background, if you look at the research that we undertook, most of the youth, like about 49%, are at the production level. They have not been able to move up the value chain later. And there are opportunities. So, for example, in the mango, there are opportunities for processing mango juice, and these have not been adequately exploited. Again, here is where we need the skills, the technology, and support, access to credit. So the county governments, again, if they could set up some of these processing industries, and I believe there's something also happening in Makueni, then it will provide employment for the youth. They may not, so there's the opportunity first for them to create their own plants, but that's like really heavy investment. But then there's also the opportunity for them to work in these plants if they're created by the county governments. But again, that's where we really need private sector partnerships and investment. Then for the potato, again, there's opportunities in processing the potatoes just to improve their value, like for the supermarket. You know, you get those that are really dirty, and then we get those that at least they've been cleaned. So it's a small, very, very minor step, but it makes a difference, and it offers an opportunity to the youth. And then there's processing the potatoes into like the crisps. Again, we have those industries, but we need to link the youth to participate more effectively, and looking at the youth community-based organizations to move beyond just producing, to at least access credit and think about an industry, for example, for producing potato chips, for producing yam chips. Yes.
Right. When you talk about research, a lot of research goes into the varieties, you know, the kind of potatoes or mangoes that should be that should be planted and harvested at any point in time. Could you talk about the role of branding Kenyan products, you know, to make them more attractive? Because when people go to an aisle in a supermarket, a lot of the decision is determined by the branding.
Sure. Again, you know, this is what we are exploring, you know, these innovative business models and bringing together the various actors in this area. So communication plays a very key role here, and there's that opportunity to be exploited of how do we get this expert knowledge to add value into what we are selling.
Okay, we shall be answering that question in a bit. Allow me to cut you short.
Okay.
We'd like to take you to the official opening of the TVET Authority in the Western region. Let's listen in to what is happening there.
Accreditation of programs, institutions, and trainers. That is our mandate. To ensure that institutions. I had somebody coming from Malaba. Yes, Madam Pierce. So this facility, we appreciate the government, we appreciate the Ministry of Education for giving us an opportunity to expand our offices, to increase our regional offices. However, we request that given more facilities, we should reach our members as close as possible. Western region does not only enjoy the advantage of its proximity to our neighboring countries, Uganda and Tanzania, but it also it is also home to Lake Victoria. With these advantages and endowment of an airport of international standard in the region, there exists enormous opportunities to tap from the blue economy and the East African free market. For those who are coming here for the first time, kindly take an opportunity to walk around Kisumu, go down the lake and enjoy the blue waters, the clean waters around this place. And we want to thank the government of Kisumu for working very closely with the national government to ensure that the lake is clean. I would encourage us to take opportunity of the blue economy, and especially existing companies, existing partners who are ready to partner with us, and especially the TVET for green economy supported by GMZ. The VC Joost, I think you are good at this in research. Germany has very many opportunities to support researches, to support innovation, to support initiatives. So I would encourage you to work closely so that at least we can have some innovation. We can make use of the blue economy around us. The fishing industry here should be striving. We should have it a vibrant fishing industry here, and then partner with other countries to ensure that we increase production. Ladies and gentlemen, the establishment of this office in a region that has been an education and training hub has specific benefits to the people of this region. That include bringing services closer to the people of Western region, greater efficiency in TVET accreditation, effective surveillance for quality assurance in our TVET institution, enhanced complaints management. Madam PS, we once more thank you for this office. The office is young. We are just launching it today. And this is our baby in this region. And of course, the baby needs to be nurtured. The baby needs to grow. Sindio, si lazima mtoto atunzwe. Si lazima mtoto akuzwe. Na ikiwa atatunzwa akuzwe, si lazima apewe maziwa. Naam, Madam PS.
And we're talking about the branding, branding of Kenyan products to make sure that they catch the eye of the buyer, you know, and that they are competitive out there. Please go on.
Yes, thank you. And I had indicated that part of the work we are doing at PASGA with partners, and specifically in this conference, is to leverage on partnerships with private sector, because communication is big business in the private sector. And yes, we do have very that can come out. We have amazing graphic designers who can really add value to the work that is being done in the agricultural sector, in the mango and potato value chains. However, in terms of branding outside of Kenya, how many of our products really have hit the international market? Tea is doing very well because it's well branded. So I think it's a process. It begins with getting the product certified for the export market, and then after that, working very closely with the Kenya Export Production and Branding Agency to get the message out there. So for example, if you brand ugali very well and advertise it on international media, I don't know how that would leverage the market in terms of effectiveness, really getting people to buy it. But once the product has entered that market, then the opportunity is there. So let's work to take our potatoes, let's work to take our mangoes, outside certified to the international market, and then create the right messaging, use the right forums to get the market out there. Yes.
Of course, apart from the food that is bought on shelves, there is the hospitality industry. It's a very important part of the sector.
Yes.
And in Kenya, we have Chinese restaurants, we have Italian restaurants, Indian restaurants. What is the role of maybe the hospitality sector in branding the Kenyan cuisine, to sell our products out there?
That's a good question. And I know really like abroad, if you think about the big cities, New York, London, we have Kenyan restaurants selling Kenyan food. And so, yes, that is a good niche for us to start our branding and our marketing. But then look at the issue of diversification. How motivated is this person who has decided that their business is running a restaurant? How motivated are they to go into a different area of sales, for example? Because they would invest where they're interested in making money from. So they will not, for example, market something that they are not going to sell. But they are a good entry point for us to, partner with in terms of exploring market abroad. Yes.
Right. Your main core business is research. Yes. So what is the role of what you do in maybe dealing with food insecurity in this country?
So the Partnership for African Social and Governance Research was established in 2011 to work with researchers and civil society organizations, universities, and others, broad range of stakeholders, to generate evidence that informs public policy. And so our areas of focus are informed by the 18 social policy framework issues of the African Union. And among them is agriculture. So when you talk about public policy really just cuts across all the sectors. And so it gives us an opportunity to intervene in agriculture. Just come again.
Yeah, okay. My question was the role of research in alleviating the food insecurity issue we have in the country.
Okay. And so I was saying that public policy research is wide.
The Kenya Bureau of Standards is at the center of Kenya's industrialization agenda. The standards body is being reformed to realign it with the new manufacturing realities. Where are we in this reform agenda?
We have been progressing, making significant progress in terms of automation, which is reducing the human interface between how we interact. And that is one of the areas where we have seen that the best we can be able to achieve is when we have automation.
This week on Inside Government, I talked to the Managing Director of Kenya Bureau of Standards, Lieutenant Colonel, retired Bernard Njeraine, on what the body is doing and what is the future of KEBS. under the new manufacturing agenda. Watch the interview right here on KBC Channel 1.
Chini ya uongozi wa Rais Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali imewekeza vilivyo katika sekta ya kilimo ili kuongeza uzalishaji chakula na pia kulinda mapato ya wakulima. Wiki hii kwenye Project 254.
My administration is currently reforming the sector by increasing output and productivity, boosting incomes in agribusiness, and ensuring household resilience and food security.
Alikuwa sisi na njaa, lakini wakati Uhuru alikuja, sisi nasema asante kwa sababu ya hii mtu anapatia maji ya irrigation.
Tunalima mchele na inatusaidia. Tunaweza kusomesha watoto, tunaweza kukaa kama mkulima anakaa kama mfanyabiashara mwingine. Hatuna tofauti sana. Sasa maisha tunaona maisha sasa ni mepesi.
Walimu. Na mtazamaji, naambiwa wenye mashua kisiwani Amu, kaunti ya Lamu, wanalalamika kuhusu kupungua kwa mapato yao kufuatia upepo mkali unaovuma baharini. Wenye mashua hizo wakiwemo manahodha na utingo wanasema wamekosa pesa za kukimu familia zao, kwani idadi ndogo ya abiria husafiri kunapotokea upepo mkali.
Kulingamana na upepo venye umekuwa mkali kwa hii season hii, tayari abiria ingi kwa bote sababu anaogopa marasha kwa njia. Ngumu sana sisi kupata kazi sababu wanahofia maji mingi na uruka kutoka bahari kuingia kwa mwili na ajali kubwa sana tena.
Bwana, hali upepo mshikaji wangu, upepo umekuwa mwingi sana. Vile unavyoona nimeoga kuanzia kiatu hadi utosini. Umefahamu bwana? Bagi yenyewe linjaa, socks umeona zimelawana, pochi limelawana. Hakuna simu imeingia maji. Saona bwana? Sivyo hali ndio mbaya, upepo
Na mtazamaji, mamia ya wakazi wa kata ndogo ya Karambari katika kaunti ya Embu wamepokea chakula cha msaada kwa kinga dhidi ya makali ya balanja. Ukosefu wa mvua ulisababisha mimea kunyakua katika eneo hilo.
Ilikuwa afueni kwa mamia ya wakazi wa kata ndogo ya Karambari, eneo bunge la Mbeere Kaskazini, ambao wamekumbwa na balanja baada ya mvua kutonyesha mwaka uliopita. Serikali ya kitaifa ilitoa msaada wa mchele, maharagwe pamoja na nyama ya mkebe kwa waathiriwa wa balanja, hususan katika kaunti 23 zilizoathiriwa zaidi na hali ya ukame humo nchini.
Mimi mwenyewe nitatembea counties zote 8 za Eastern Region kuhakikisha kwamba wananchi wamepata chakula vile rais ameagiza.
Mrakibu wa kanda ya Mashariki Evans Achoki amesema hali sio nzuri, huku akiahidi kuwa serikali imechukua hatua za dharura kusaidia wahanga wa njaa huku nchini.
Upande wa chakula ilikatikiwa na mvua kama haijakuwa. Pande ya mvua haikuwa sawa.
From within, not for the teacher to demand that the child buys this book or for a parent to be the one to choose it, but for the children themselves to desire this book.
Katika awamu ya kwanza ya vitabu hivi wanazingatia kasa ambao ni wanyama walio kwenye hatari ya kuangamizwa katika eneo la pwani ya Kenya.
So today we were launching the first title of a book series we'll have. It's called SUDEF Wildlife Detectives series, and this is the first ever wildlife detectives fiction book series set in Africa.
Kudumisha kutolewa kwa vitabu kwa kizazi hiki ni dhahiri kwamba mazingira yatalindwa katika siku za usoni. Ruth Wamboi nikiripotia Kurunzi Mashinani.
Na mtazamaji, sasa tuelekee moja kwa moja kule Kisumu ambapo katibu katika wizara inayohusiana na masuala ya kiufundi Margaret Mwakima amefungua vyuo ama ofisi za vyuo vya kiufundi katika maeneo ile ya magharibi. Tupate kusikiana ana nini ya kutuambia.
I urge you all TVET providers to visit the office for consultation on all issues relating to TVET accreditation. The general public is also encouraged to confirm accreditation status of institutions from this office before commencing training. What we are requiring from all the TVET institutions is for them to be able to display the accreditation at an area where the public can be able to view and access, so that before we recruit the trainers, we all are sure that we are well accredited and we also are operating within the standards, so that we can be able to give the quality training and the prerequisite skills that are very key in building our nation. Kisumu County has made strides towards implementation of SDG 11, where we are striving as a country to make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Congratulations to Kisumu County. Further, this city has the opportunity to position itself as a learning city as defined by UNESCO. And so it's very critical that our training in various institutions are able to be synchronized with the various economic activities that are in this county, so that we can be able to propagate the economic and the social development of Kisumu County. To this end, yesterday, if you all can recall, we were at Kisumu National Polytechnic and we launched the commissioning of a new center, a new regional center of excellence for textile and garment production for the entire region of Kenya, but also for Ethiopia, Tanzania, Uganda, and the rest of the East Africa. And this is an opportunity for us within this county of Kisumu, because we are all known as a cotton growing area. The governor indicated the strides he's making on the BT cotton, and therefore take advantage so that we can be able to leverage on these skills that now we are going to enhance and have our youth socialized and developed in textile technology and garment production, so that the likes of the EPZs and all other international garment production industries can be able to find Kisumu County. And one of them, of course, is inadequate training facilities, which include sanitation facilities. So our county government within this county, we are requesting for more of these sanitation facilities, which can also now enable our trainees to use them for their practical training. because as we were told yesterday by the Cabinet Secretary, Professor George Magoha, one of those areas that we'll be proud of as CBET to train on, because each one of us since morning must have used such facility, is for us to ensure our sanitation facilities, our ablution blocks, and all that which requires the necessary.
Naam, mtazamaji, huyo ni katibu ambaye amefungua afisi za vyuo vya kiufundi katika kaunti ya Kisumu, akisema kuwa malalamishi yote na maswali yote kuhusiana na masuala ya vyuo vya kifundi yatakuwa yataelekezwa kule katika afisi hiyo mpya imefunguliwa kale. Na pia amesema kwa mtaala mpya CBC iko hapa kuendelea. Ni taarifa ambayo mwanahabari mwenzangu Wycliffe Okech amelivalia njuga na tupatia taarifa hiyo kwa kina hapo baadaye. Tukisonga mbele, Baraza Kuu la Kanisa la African Independent Pentecostal Church of Kenya limemteua Daktari David Kiruthi Gatimu kuwa askofu mkuu mpya yapata siku 90 baada ya kifo cha Askofu John Njoroge Mwaura. Askofu Mwaura aliombolezwa kwa siku 30 na kisha maombi yakafanyika kwa siku 40.
Kwa mujibu wa katiba la kanisa la AIPCK, kamati maalum ya uchaguzi iliidhinisha wawaniaji 5 wa wadhifa, ambapo wajumbe 195 kutoka matawi 27 ya kanisa hilo wakapiga kura kumchagua askofu mkuu mpya.
Bishop Dr.
Askofu huyu mteule amesema atatumia maarifa yake aliyopata akiwa askari kuunganisha waumini wa kanisa hilo na kueneza injili kote nchini, haswa akiangazia uhusiano bora katika familia.
Niko tayari kusikiza kutoka kwa kila mtu, maana najua kama tutaenda mbali itabidi tutembee pamoja. Somebody who believe in the so-called servant leadership. Tukitembea pamoja tutaenda mbali, maana kuna msemo unasema ukitaka kwenda haraka tembea peke yako, lakini ukitaka kwenda mbali tembea pamoja na wengine.
Daktari David Gatimu, ambaye ni askofu mkuu mteule, atatawazwa baada ya siku 30 kutoka siku ya uteuzi wake.
Itakuwa ni katika mwezi wa 3. Mwezi wa 3 haitapita mwezi wa 3. Sababu mwezi wa 4 tunaenda mafuta.
Mwenyekiti wa kanisa hilo George Njuruba amesema kanisa hilo litaendelea kuombea amani humu nchini wakati huu tunapoelekea kwenye uchaguzi mkuu. Hii ni mara ya pili kanisa hilo kuandaa uchaguzi wa mpito wa uongozi bila vurugu. Jelis Aladi nikiripotia makala ya Kurunzi Mashinani.
Na msomaji, sasa nikupatie taarifa niliyokudokezea hapo awali inayofungamana na masuala ya elimu, ambapo wadau wa elimu huko Mandera wanahimiza uajiri wa walimu kutoka eneo hilo ili kushughulikia tatizo la uhaba wa walimu. Wakati wa kongamano lililohudhuriwa na walimu wakuu na wadau wengine wa elimu, tume ya TSC ilihimizwa kupunguza alama ya kujiunga na vyuo vya mafunzo ya walimu hadi D- ili kutatua tatizo la uhaba wa walimu katika eneo hilo.
Walimu 1000 wasio wazawa wa eneo la Mandera walikimbilia usalama.
Seeing that the best we can be able to achieve is when we have automation.
This week on Inside Garment, I talked to the Managing Director of Kenya Bureau of Standards, Lieutenant Colonel retired Bernard Njeraini, on what the body is doing and what is the future of KEBS under the new manufacturing agenda. Watch the interview right here on KBC Channel 1.
Saki Aruko no no, Atabina Madusema. Moka Pitana Bell, Owanta, Atabina Madusema. Hey, Aru, DJ Fiswa, Aruko no no, Gérard Mboko, l'ancien cordon de la secrétaire. Venu sur le Galta.
Keep abreast of the developments live from the National Assembly and the Senate.
On our members of parliament.
The questions.
When is the construction expected to commence?
The motions.
Beg to give notice for the following motion.
The debate.
Will as many as want to say aye.
The statements.